There are two of them. You guys never vote in one of them, but there are two. You've got the primary season, and then you also have the general election. Right? So what's the big discussion? Remember, in the old days, men in smoke-filled rooms would pick candidates. How are the candidates now nominated today? Who gets to pick them? The people do. The only problem is the people that come out to vote, all right, in the primaries, remember what I said in Minnesota, we get about 10% that come out and vote. Those people tend to be the more ideological. These are your primary voters. All right, right here, out toward the wings, primary. That's an arrow. So if the people are picking the candidates today, and they're your die-hard ideological people that show up at the polls in the primaries, they might be picking candidates that are what? Too far to the right, too far to the left, and as a result, they might not be picking the best candidates, just the candidates that are more conservative and more liberal. Rick Santorum is talking about running for the presidency again. Rick Santorum is here. Did really well last time. The Republicans have always done a better job during the nominating elections. They select the delegates differently, but they've always done a better job. John McCain was a pretty good pick. Mitt Romney. They like to pick people who are electable. The Democrats have been picking people way over here for years. Electability issues. All right? So back in the old days when it was corrupt, and men in smoke-filled rooms were trying, obviously, to get a certain party into office so they could get government contracts, and they'd offer then, obviously, people jobs if they vote for these candidates, and then everybody was happy because they had a job, because the government would offer them jobs, and it was really corrupt. But the difference is that they picked candidates who could win. Today, it seems like that's a problem. Okay? So it really is, all right, a conflict between you, the people, picking the candidates, all right, versus the party bosses, the machines. That's what it really is there. Okay, so make sure you know that. Number 9, describe how candidates must prepare for the primary election versus the general. We'll take a look at this once. If you're running for office and you're Mitt Romney, let's use Mitt as an example, because the president was an incumbent. If you're running for office and you're Mitt Romney and it's the primary season, well, who's the people who come out and vote in the primaries are more conservative? Well, you better talk about how Romney care, all right, really wasn't socialized medicine. You better talk about how you're a strong pro-life advocate. You better carry a shotgun with you wherever you go, all right? Your Second Amendment rights and a gun with you. You've really got to appeal to the more conservative groups of people who show up. If you want to get nominated, you better do that. But then what happens when you are nominated? Now you got to appeal to who? You got to appeal to everybody. You want to win the presidency. And in the general election, we got a lot of people who come out and vote, not just the diehards. Okay, so that's what you really have here. During the primary, you go to the edges, the more ideological extremes. In the general election, you go back to the middle. That's what the answer is. Why was the Electoral College formed? Make sure that you know this because it's a great controversy in America. The founders did not trust popular opinion. You know, a demagogue could play in the passions and fears of the people, so they did not trust popular majority. All right? They felt that it was okay for you to vote for a president, but it should be a battle between the states. You'd have to win a majority of the states, not a majority of the people, and that's very different. Okay? And then they also felt that the large states might have an advantage, once again, because of population. So there's a couple reasons that they didn't really care for the care for popular opinion in picking this. They created Electoral College. Number 11, all right, you need a plurality to win all of the state's electoral votes. Okay, number 12. Yep.
Number 11, the polarity is just 50% plus 1.
That's majority. So let's do this again here, Spandelli. All right, let's do this again here. I'm going to draw a little Minnesota. Might be one of my best ever. Oh, baby, don't even say it. That's unbelievable. Okay, you've got 8 representatives, 2 senators, these 10 electoral votes, right? If Mitt Romney let's just say that Ron, all right, has 47% of the vote, and Barack Obama, all right, gets 48% of the vote. That's what we're gonna do here. And let's say that Tom Jones, okay, I just made him up, all right, gets, let's say 5% of the vote. Now, nobody got a majority, but Mr. Obama, all right, got a plurality. He gets all 10 electoral votes. Okay, remember that? You only need a plurality. Now, this is going to lead into this coming question, okay? Just a couple questions down here, okay? So remember this here for a second for now. Number 12, Jesse Ventura shocked the world. He won as a Reform Party candidate. And how is winning the governorship related to the election for the presidency? It's a stepping stone. Remember, who gets elected to the presidency, you guys? Do representatives? No. Governors do. Governors get elected to the presidency, so that's a huge thing. All right, 13, what are the two things? All right, what are the two things here that third parties do? Number one, they don't win, okay? But what are the two things that they can do even though they don't win? Number one is play the spoiler. They can cause someone else to lose. They can steal votes from someone else. All right, and just like this, I mean, here's the spoiler. If the people who voted for the third party, really, their second choice was Romney, well, he just lost because people voted for the third party. He played the spoiler. Number two, if you look back at Ross Perot, remember what I said, he never won a state, but he won 19% of the popular vote. In the next election, holy crap, that's 19% of the people that voted for a third-party candidate. So what that means, you guys, is that, what that really means is that the main parties are gonna have to then absorb some of those platforms of that third party. If Ross Perot is gonna talk extensively about the debt, and he gets 19% of the vote, then in the next election, the Democrats and Republicans better start listening, all right, to people about the debt. And they better change their platform, okay? So I hope that makes sense. Is that iPad's up over there? Hi. Is somebody taping me right now? Are you really?
It's for Jenna.
For who?
Jenna.
Who's Jenna?
Jenna Primus.
Primo! Hey! Glad you could join us. I didn't know you could. Oh, so that's actually, is that an audio or a video? Oh, it is. Oh, I didn't know that. So I can like moonwalk? I can't moonwalk. I don't know how, but okay. All right, let's keep moving on. Okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
For number 8, what did you say the answer was?
For number 8, the discussion is, are we selecting the best candidates? Because we let the people decide. You just have to remember, all right, years ago, we didn't have primaries. That doesn't even exist. You know, originally, the candidates were just selected by a loose organization of politicians. They just said, pick them. But there was this sense that it was corrupt, and then you had the party machines, the boss tweets, and you know what, not a perception that it was corrupt, it was corrupt, it was. And so then what happens is that we have a progressive movement, people want to make it more democratic. We democratized, all right, how we pick the candidates who they're, remember what we're doing here. You got to remember what we're doing with the primary. We're picking candidates, or we're going to pick the candidate who is going to be the Republican candidate. Remember we had Bachman, we had Herminator, we had Romney, we have Perry. They all want to be the Republican candidate. Well, you can only have one. That's what you do in the primary. And you, the people, get to decide. Remember we said that delegates are people, but they're also a number. And so that's the discussion today. Should it be the party bosses of the primaries? The people. Go to number 14, please. All right. The differences, compare and contrast the differences between congressional and presidential elections. Okay, so here's what we have. In the presidential election, there's many more people who vote. It's incredibly competitive. Very seldom does a president win with more than 55%. Very seldom. And they have term limits. Congressional elections, you don't have very many people that show up. We said 36%. And when you do win, you kick butt. It's not very competitive. It's just not as competitive in the House races, especially the House. Senate a little bit different, but and then there's unlimited terms. So that's kind of looking at the different differences between the two. Number 15, all you have to do is look up here at the board. We see a lot more split ticket voting. How come? How come, you guys? There's more what? There's more what? Swing voters. There's more independents. And when I say independent, that means that they're not necessarily Republican or Democrat. They'll swing. So we've seen a lot more of that over the years here. Okay. Let's go to, all right, number 16. Number 16, I'm not going to redo this. It's right here on the board. This is it. All right, so if you want to do well on those questions tomorrow, not tomorrow, fathead, on Monday, all right, if you want to do well on those, remember this little matrix that we set up here. That's really what I'm asking you in 16. Describe how liberals and conservatives differ on social and economic issues. Right here, okay? 17. How did your forefathers observe political parties? Remember, Washington spent much of his farewell address voicing his displeasure that factions would be created and they'd tear apart the country. Right, so keep that in mind. Number 18. This is going to be important. Remember we talked earlier, all right, we only have 10% of the people who are going to show up in primaries. Well, why is that? Well, if this is where a lot of the people are, this is what they claim they are, they're moderate, okay? That means you're a swing voter. That means that you could go either, all right, Democrat, or you could go Republican. Well, what's the incentive to vote in a primary? Because in a primary, you always have to vote what ticket? You cannot split, can you? You always have to go straight ticket. Yep, straight ticket. You can only vote straight ticket in a primary. It just so happens to be, all right, that in closed primaries, you must be registered as a Republican or Democrat. So when you walk in to vote, well, that's the ballot that you're going to get, or a Green Party or Libertarian for that matter. In states that have open primaries, you don't have to be registered. You could walk in that day, you're walking in, hi there, election officials, I'd like to have my ballot today and I'd like to vote in the primary. And then they'll ask you, well, what ballot would you like today? Well, let's say you're a die-hard Republican. Okay? Well, I want the Democratic ballot.